The Unaccountable Empire. Why the United Kingdom must answer for a century of global injustice. For centuries, the British Empire operated with the arrogance of a global landlord, conquering, dividing, selling, and transferring lands and peoples as if they were commodities. From Asia to Africa, the Middle East to the Caribbean, and the Balkans to the Pacific, British hands have shaped borders, orchestrated population displacements, and restructured nations, not for the benefit of those who lived there but to serve imperial interests. Despite its polished image as a democracy and its self-appointed role as a defender of human rights, the United Kingdom has never fully confronted or atoned for the damage it inflicted around the world. A reckoning is long overdue. The empire that never apologized. The UK's colonial history is marred with acts of violence, dispossession, and betrayal. Land was taken, resources were looted, cultures were undermined, and entire populations were uprooted, enslaved, or left to suffer under artificial borders drawn in London boardrooms. Take Palestine, for instance. The 1917 Balfour Declaration, made without consulting the native population, promised a Jewish homeland in a land that was 90% Arab. It laid the foundation for over a century of conflict and dispossession. To this day, Britain has not apologized for its decisive role in creating the conditions that led to the Nakba and the ongoing suffering of the Palestinian people. In Hong Kong, Britain waged the Opium Wars, forced the Qing dynasty to cede territory, and then ruled the region with colonial authority until 1997. There has never been an apology for the narcotics-driven war or the consequences of colonial rule. In India, the jewel in Britain's imperial crown, colonial policies led to the deaths of millions, from the Bengal famine of 1943 to the chaotic and violent partition of 1947. Britain left behind a fractured subcontinent, and while Indian leaders have repeatedly demanded recognition and reparations, British officials still speak of the empire with nostalgic pride. In Kenya, the Mau Mau uprising was crushed with brutal force, including mass internment, torture, and executions. While a partial apology and some compensation were offered in 2013, the broader crimes of British colonialism in Africa, economic exploitation, forced labor, and cultural destruction, remain largely unacknowledged. Caribbean nations continue to demand reparations for slavery, in which Britain played a central and profitable role. These islands were turned into plantation economies through forced African labor. Even after abolishing slavery, Britain compensated slave owners, not the enslaved. No formal state apology for slavery has ever been made by the UK. And then there's Albania, a country not colonized directly by Britain, but a victim nonetheless of British foreign policy in the Balkans. After the fall of the Ottoman Empire, and during the chaotic reshaping of Europe after World War I, Britain sided with powers that carved up Albanian territories, ignoring Albanian national claims in favor of strategic and diplomatic interests. Albanian lands were partitioned, peoples separated by artificial borders, and a small, vulnerable Albania was left to struggle for sovereignty while its people in Kosovo, Macedonia, Montenegro, and Greece remained under foreign rule. Britain's role in this geopolitical betrayal is rarely spoken of, but its silence, like in so many other cases, is part of the problem. A pattern of selling people without consent. The common thread in these examples is that the UK made decisions about the fate of nations without regard to the will of their people. Whether by drawing arbitrary borders, as in the Middle East, handing over territories without democratic consent, as in Hong Kong, or empowering one group over another, as in Palestine or Sudan, Britain prioritized its own strategic and economic interests over justice, freedom, and human dignity. When the British Empire collapsed, it didn't leave behind a world of free and equal nations. It left behind conflict zones, refugee crises, unstable states, and scars that generations are still trying to heal. Why accountability matters. It's not enough for British officials to say, "That was the past." The consequences of colonialism are not ancient history, they are present reality. The wounds inflicted by British policies are still bleeding in Gaza, in Kashmir, in Northern Ireland, in Kenya, and in Kosovo. British banks, universities, and museums still hold the profits and artifacts of empire. And yet, the British government clings to a policy of selective memory and strategic silence. Apologies matter. Reparations matter. Acknowledging historical crimes matters. It is the only path to reconciliation, justice, and healing. While Germany has apologized for the Holocaust, and even Belgium has begun to reckon with its crimes in the Congo, Britain remains the empire that refuses to say sorry. A call for global pressure. It is time for the world to hold Britain accountable, not just in history books but in international forums, in educational curriculums, and in legal demands for reparations. Former colonies must unite in calling for recognition and justice. And British citizens too must demand that their government confront the truth, not with nostalgia, but with honesty and responsibility. The legacy of empire is not just Britain's past. It is the world's present. And justice will not be possible until the UK stops pretending that empire was glorious and starts admitting that it was a crime. History cannot be changed, but justice can still be pursued. And silence is no longer an option.